There is nothing in my life right now that is more important than talking about Uncharted with Spencer Pazer. So that's exactly what we're going to do. It's Nerdy for 30.
Just so the listeners are aware, I was brought to this movie against my will, and
we haven't started yet. Spencer, shut up. Kevin, do your thing.
Start with that. Let's get Spencer on record. You can't see this. We do have a gun to his head.
Yeah, no, I merely enjoy the prospect of spending time with the two of you and engaging in these thoughtful discussions. But this was against my will. And
you're wrong. You are wrong. You are wrong. This is it's a film. It's not a movie. It's a film. It's a piece of art.
This is a piece of cinema, is what you're saying.
It's a piece of cinema. Oscar talks for sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
definitely
Oscar talks for sure. As in Oscar the Grouch is talking about why the fuck did they put shit this bad in my trash can? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to Nerdy 430, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish things for 30-ish minutes. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Tim Keck. My name is Kevin Bauer. And if you've been listening to the podcast at all over the past couple weeks, you recognize our guest already. It's Spencer Pazer. He's been here with us. It's an unofficial trilogy at this point, the likes of which I think it's going to be the best trilogy you see until they make the other two Uncharted movies, right? I'm talking franchise potential from this. You've probably picked up from like context cues so far. This is a terrible movie. Is it doing well? Is it doing well?
It
is doing well.
It's doing well. Good. We'll get another one. I want another one. I'm ready for it. I'll watch 3 of them. I'll watch 4 more of them. I don't care. Do 8.
Tony CEO already said like they're basically going to do more of them.
They have to. I mean, they went out of their way to make such an awesome PlayStation logo or Chiron at the beginning. What is that called?
Yes, they made the company's like logo. Chiron's not the right word. I know I've lost it, but
there's got to be a word for it.
Yeah. So what Tim's referring to is when the movie starts, all the production company like logos have like their own
production
special
cards, right?
Production cards, I guess, or title card. Sorry, title card. So PlayStation now has its own title card for films produced based off of games made for PlayStation, and it is not appealing at all. There was nothing in that title card that made me interested whatsoever.
Dude, I think this is a great place to get started too, because, first off, this title card happens before the movie even starts. I could feel everybody in the whole theater go, what? It's maybe the only time that I've ever seen where a title card like throws everybody off early on.
Now, when you say everybody, even though we said that this movie is successful, you do mean the total number of 16 people who were in the theater with us.
Yes.
On that day. Yes.
There were 16 people in the theater for Jackass. We just have a great spot now,
Jackass was much more crowded than this movie.
We found a great theater with comfy seats that nobody goes to, and we watch movies by ourselves.
Don't tell anybody where this thing is.
No,
I feel like we're the only ones that know about it.
I'm not going to mention it at all. So ranking, so let's all go around and say what other PlayStation movies we're excited for. I personally am excited for the God of War movie. I'm sure that's going to be great. Do they have the rights to Red Dead Redemption? That's a movie I'd watch. They got a lot of properties that I'm ready to lap up.
Here's the thing, man. I think this is the deal with any kind of a video game movie property, is that it really, truly does not need to exist. The games themselves are so immersive, so cinematic, especially the Sony games that they showed in this title card. God of War, the game from 2018, is going to be way better than whatever version of it they can put on the screen. It's automatically going to pale in comparison. It's not like a book where it's like at least we're seeing these things that we imagined in our heads on screen for the first time. It's not like a comic where we're seeing this 2-dimensional image come to life in 3D for the first time. This was already a 3D image. For the most part, it was already CGI. It's going to be maybe a slightly better resolution because Hollywood can pay for it and it doesn't have to be like playable.
No, it's just real people in a CGI landscape instead of CGI people in a CGI landscape. And to Kevin's point, the only reason a Red Dead movie will never be made is because you play a movie. I mean, the game itself is a film playing out in front of you, except you get to control it. And it's so much better that way. And I would imagine the game Uncharted is better. But Kevin here is going to offer his defense of this film and why he enjoyed it so much. So
wait, I want to get in here real quick with my other PlayStation idea before we jump off of this topic completely. Everyone, I think, is chasing the Tomb Raider high, which I personally prop up as an example of a video game that I've never played because they always looked bad and boring, and watch those movies constantly, mostly to see Angelina Jolie's side boob when she got out of the shower in the second one. But those movies defined my youth. They were constantly on TV. They're exactly the tier of movie that Uncharted is, like a good TNT movie, a good they're puzzle movies. You're working on something, like you're focusing on something, and this is in the background. It's like exactly that tier of movie. Definitely better than the video game. Maybe the counter to that is just the Tomb Raider video game the technology was not nearly there for video games back then. And so the video games did not have the cinematic quality that an actual film could have. Whereas Red Dead Redemption, now you're playing, 113 hours of story and like an immersive, like voice actors and like people that look almost real and spending so much time with these characters that a movie doesn't really add anything to it.
I think you literally just said the exact point I was going to bring up, which is that the only reason Tomb Raider and movies like it were successful were because video game graphics were such garbage, such trash when Tomb Raider was popular, that putting Angelina Jolie in its place was like, first of all, she was the biggest star on the planet at that point in her career. I mean, she was like, what was she dating Billy Bob Thornton, wearing a vial of, she was the OG when it came to wearing a vial of blood around someone's neck, making out with her brother on red carpets. I mean, that was the stuff of legend. Like,
wait, I want to address all three of the points that you just said.
Yes,
First off,
get in there, Kev.
You said dating Billy Bob Thornton as if that was like the mark of the most famous actor on earth. It's like, look, the A-list is determined by who is currently dating Billy Bob Thornton.
At the time, I would have said absolutely yes.
Oh my God. Second off, you said she was the OG in wearing your partner's blood around their neck.
That's what got me.
That's a trend that's everywhere now.
Okay, well,
everyone who's doing it now is a bunch of posers.
Well, currently, isn't like MGK and Megan Fox doing something like that right now?
What aren't they doing?
That's the point. Like they're this hot couple. Like Angelina and Billy Bob were the MGK and Megan Fox like 20 years ago is what I'm saying. Like that's how popular they were. They were everywhere.
Well, which brings me to my last point. The third thing you mentioned as a mark of a top tier actor is making out with your brother on the red carpet.
Very cool.
I would say it puts you in a very notable category when you're doing something like that in a very public forum. But I digress.
I want to see Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox do like a blood transfusion on the red carpet and have like IVs hooked up and just be like they're walking down the red carpet, but their blood is literally mixing with the blood in the other person's body. And we can see it all through wires and stuff. Like really freak us out, guys, while they're kissing their siblings. Like, let's go real hard.
You've put it out into the world, so now it's possible as far as I'm concerned.
That's the secret, Tim.
And they're regular Nerdy for 30 listeners.
So hi, Megan and MGK. Nice to glad you're here with us.
I mean, I think you're both dead on. Like, it's never gonna pale. Yeah, specifically about the riffs. You're both dead on.
After talking about Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox for 2 minutes, Kevin's like, you guys are both spot on.
I gotta say, you're right.
Is this way to get back to Uncharted talk? That's
I'm charting a path back.
Yeah. Good segue.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. You know, I felt bad about it. Tim's, you're both right. Spencer, Tim, the idea that there's never anything that we're going to see in these movies that's going to match up to what we get to play for 100+ hours. There's no way. You can't cram that much story into one movie, even like Uncharted that looks like they're trying to make it into a franchise. There's no way. You're never going to be able to make enough movies to cover everything you can cover in the game. And the interactive element is key to that. The fact that because you're playing it, you are immersed in the game. The Last of Us is maybe my favorite game of all time because I feel like I lived through it. But by the same token, I do think Tim had a point when he said that everybody's chasing that Tomb Raider high, because the action adventure, like specifically I'm going to say the adventure movie genre has really been lacking lately. There's a lot of superhero movies that come out, but there was like a late 90s, early 2000s resurgence of these adventure movies. The Mummy, The Scorpion King, Tomb Raider 2. I'm going to lump National Treasure in there.
I think
like National Treasure is just an adventure movie that's lumped into
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean, absolutely. Huge one. I personally hated this movie, but Spencer blew my mind by revealing that he loves it. Fool's Gold. Definitely an adventure
Spencer's
movie.
Favorite
Sahara.
movie.
I've never actually seen Sahara, but I hear Sahara is great.
What a bomb to drop and say that I loved it.
You definitely loved it.
You fought so hard for that movie.
I fought hard for that movie in comparison to the one we are discussing now.
Oh my God.
Which we should, you know what we should do? We should first, we have to get out the plot of this film out of the way for the listener, because they need to know what's at stake here. We need to tell them why Tim loved it so much, why I despised it so much, and why Kevin, where you are on it.
Here's why I liked it, is because it's just, they said the plot is just, hey, Mark Wahlberg, he's a fun guy. Tom Holland, he can be a fun guy. Let's put them together and let's just have them go on little adventures together. And there's a pirate ship and they're solving a puzzle and there's no stakes. There's no emotional context. It's just, they're just going on an adventure together and they're doing fun stuff. They're both pickpockets. They both look cool. The fighting's kind of neat. Like if you are, I'm coining the term puzzle movie. If you were working on something and had this on in the background, you would love. This is a background movie, like easily, where you just come in. You're not too worried about what's going on. You're not too worried about what the stakes are. You just want to see a cool fight scene and then leave.
Specifically, you're at the dinner table. You're working on a puzzle. TNT is on in the background.
Yes.
And this movie is playing on TNT.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's exactly the place it belongs. It's exactly the tier it's in. Now you just listed a bunch of movies to compare it to, which I think it is in those classes. I would argue all of those other movies are better movies, especially Fool's Gold, just out of respect for Spencer, because I don't want to start a fight with him. But this is trying to be National Treasure, which National Treasure is like a great movie. Like it's a fun movie. It's the same thing as Uncharted, but better. So when we're picking nits in this, and I think why Spencer's freaking out so much is like, this isn't a good movie, but it's a fun movie, I think. And I was able to turn my brain off 10 minutes in once I realized what it was and just sit back and enjoy how dumb it was.
Sorry, before we continue, I want to lump in another adventure movie that's also better than this. The Sorcerer's Apprentice is better than this movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Kevin's face.
Have you both seen it? I've never seen this movie.
Oh, with Nick Cage?
Oh, really? You've never seen The
Yeah.
Sorcerer's Apprentice?
Is it worth watching?
Oh, I mean, no, but it's better than this.
I'll put it on next time I need to work on a puzzle.
So what's missing, Spencer? What is the thing that's missing? Because I think one of the elements that we discussed before was just an emotional component. They're all looking for treasure, and we don't really know why they're looking for treasure. There's no other reason for treasure. They just both need treasure. And
the only reason we're looking for treasure is because Mark Wahlberg wants to be rich and Tom Holland wants to find his brother or finish what his brother did. And the setup for that emotional arc in the beginning of the movie was so fucking lame that, I guess, as you recall, Tim and Kevin, in the opening sequence of the film where the younger version of Tom Holland, who can't be, he really isn't that much younger and isn't much smaller than the real Tom Holland, is following his brother into, are they in a school or where were they? Or was it like a museum?
I think they were in the, like, whatever the Boston Museum of Art is.
But didn't like a sister bust them, like a nun bust them?
The museum guards.
It was the museum.
Called the cops on them. The cops brought them to the.
That's right. Okay, you're right. You're right about that. They go to find a map, and they stand in front of this map and have the most insane revelatory moment about their parents being dead. And what's the line, Tim? It's like
lost but not forgotten, but lost.
Yes, lost
but
and
not
then
gone.
He goes, and lost but not forgotten. Like if something's lost, it can be found. And then Tom Holland's the younger version of Tom Holland's character goes, "What about my parents?" And the brother goes, "No, they're dead. They're gone." I remember laughing just as obnoxiously as I just did during that moment and caring so little for the continuing motion of the film, including so that the older brother leaves the younger brother in the lurch. And then 15 years go by and we're now catching up with Tom Holland as he's playing the movie Cocktail, playing the role of Tom Hanks in the movie Cocktail.
The thesis statement of the movie is kind of what's lost can be found again. And immediately they stay with this thesis is, and then he asks about his parents and he's like, no. Everything else in the movie is about that except for these two people. And it's like, oh my, the whole time I was convinced Mark Wahlberg was going to be his dad. Like, I still think that's true. Mark Wahlberg is his dad. There's no doubt in my mind.
I don't think you're far off on that. I think you could be right on that, which honestly would be, if that is the case, in the sequel will be a refreshing, piece, storytelling device. But I mean, having watched what we just watched, I would expect at the same time to miss that entirely, to miss that opportunity. And then, some obviously, spoiler alert, the brother's still alive at the end of it all. I mean, the whole movie mattered for nothing. It mattered for nothing. And it was as basic as you recall that Rick and Morty episode about going on adventures and double crossing. Have either of you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. That's what I felt like I was watching. I just kept thinking of that Rick and Morty episode the entire time where everyone's double crossing each other and just the robots. I don't know.
I kind of feel like we got an origin story for Tom Holland's shoulder holster in the same way that Black Widow was an origin story for a vest and dyed hair.
That's so funny.
This movie existed so that the next movie could start and we wouldn't question, wait, Tom Holland's a treasure hunter? But the thing is, we weren't going to question that. Any of the movies that I listed that are in the adventure genre, they all start with a treasure hunter already hunting treasure. Good to go. It's all okay. We're there for a treasure hunting movie. We are not going to question that part of the premise.
Yeah.
What was weird about it was when he was tending bar, though, that was maybe the parts of the movie that worked the best. There was something about him as a bartender that was kind of grifting. I think there's a completely separate action movie or a completely separate adventure or heist movie that you can go and do with that version of the character, because it was it was really fun to watch Tom Holland as a bartender with sticky fingers, putting him in suits and stuff. I don't think he's James Bond potential, but this kind of James Bondy, Oliver Twisty guy. Yeah, that's in his wheelhouse.
Well, that's the Danny Ocean, Linus Caldwell moment from Ocean's 11, where he lifts the wallet, follows him into the bar, that whole thing.
I'm saying, I feel like that's a more compelling direction to take. I know this is an adaptation, but there's the bones in there to do a different, better movie out of this. And it's just kind of a shame that that's not the movie we saw. And instead we saw a prequel that we didn't need.
I don't think Tom Holland is the reason this movie's bad. I think Tom Holland is great in this. And all the things I really like about this, I'm like, oh, I would love to see more of Tom Holland being a spy and being a pickpocket and being a treasure hunter. All this stuff sounds fun to me. Like, I'm happy to sit back and watch this guy go on adventures. I think he can do it. You know, I was kind of worried the whole time. I'd be like, oh, Spider-Man's on an adventure. And after a while, I kind of was like, no, that's Tom Holland on an adventure. It's not Spider-Man. I don't know the guy's name. I know it's Nathan Drake or something like that, but fuck it. That's not who I was watching. I was watching Tom Holland and some random girl go on an adventure.
The opening sequence makes it look like Spider-Man, where they're hanging out of the plane, where all the random physics come into play as they're being dragged off of the tail end of a cargo plane.
That reminds me of, you brought up Rick and Morty, of another Rick and Morty quote that I think of all the time with these movies and with stories in general is, you know, basically Dan Harmon saying stories should start where they start, not where they get interesting. And it's just all these movies opening with a fun scene and then cutting to 5 days later. I hate it. I can't stand it. It's the most obnoxious thing ever. Because in my mind, it just erases all of the stakes for the movie up until that point, right? Tom Holland is still alive in this. Guys are shooting at him. You know what? He's going to be fine. He's going to end up falling out of a plane, which is a cool scene, but he's not going to die. He's not going to get hurt. He's not going to get beat up. He's not going to get lost. I know we're all running. I know everything is going towards this scene. So now it's in the back of my head this whole time. And I don't understand for the life of me how that's good movie making work. I don't understand how that's good storytelling. Just chasing
Tim,
this
you just
event.
answered your own question, because it's not good movie making. That is why this movie sucks.
It's always bad. It's never, ever worked for me.
I want to say, this is just a pet theory that I'm hatching right now. I want to say it's that when it works well, it's not that direct. So when it works well, we're seeing something where we don't necessarily know all of the ingredients that go into it. We're just promised something exciting is going to happen. The example that's very vague, the example that I want to give for this is we see Tom Holland hanging out of the plane. So like you said, we know that Tom Holland survives all of the gunshots that are being fired at him. Anytime we're worried that he might go to jail, we know that he doesn't stay in jail too long, because here he is hanging outside the airplane. So I think when it does work, maybe it has to concern elements that aren't so fixed. Like we see not one of the principal characters. We see something else. I would need to go do research to back that up. But
I mean, I think Walk the Line is one that comes to mind, right? Like in that movie, it's like he's reflecting, the character Johnny Cash is reflecting on his life before or during a show. And so he's looking back on his life. And so the stakes in that aren't, oh my God, is Johnny Cash going to die? Oh my God, what's this crazy plot going to be? It's like, oh, Johnny Cash is a character we already know. So like, why not have him on stage looking back at his life? I guess that's a way to tell a story. I don't know if that's necessary, but the stakes are not the same as action movie where we know a character is going to be okay, 10 weeks from now. But then we go back 10 weeks and we have to somehow, oh my God, wow, he got out of there. Oh my God, he survived the fall. Can't believe that happened,
Dude, I think you nailed it. I think the genre is important, because I'm also thinking of, you said Johnny Cash. I'm thinking of Get On Up, where it starts off with that scene of James Brown shooting a shotgun inside the building because someone used his private bathroom. And in that example, it's like, how the fuck did we end up here? Like, we get to see this person that we've all known as James Brown get to the point where he's going to shoot a shotgun into the air because someone shit in his private bathroom.
Well, there's a reason why. Those elements work for storytelling in a movie in these two instances, especially in a biopic, is because we all know the person that we're talking about and that we're viewing a story about. We don't know the in-betweens. We don't know, because when you're watching a real person, like, every step is something that you can feel, that you can perceive yourself doing, because you know how hard it is to fall to the ground. Like a superhero falling to the ground, or like a fictional character, that literally means nothing for them, because it doesn't mean anything to the progress of their story. Like someone like James Brown or Johnny Cash, like all these things they did throughout their lives, crazy and whatnot. Like in the moment, they're scary and they're like, how? Oh my God! Like you're like, wow, you're filling in the pieces of a puzzle. But with a character like Nathan Drake, that's fictional treasure hunter, like unless you ground it properly, then it's just going to seem like a video game where he just has unlimited lives. And there's holds no stakes for the viewer in that. And it makes the movie unappealing in so many ways.
On a similar note, it opens with this scene that we're kind of discussing, which is like this big airplane scene, which they're very proud of, and they wanted to show it as many times as possible. I think that's what it is. It was in the trailer. Yeah. If you've seen the trailer, you've seen this movie. If you don't want to watch this movie, go watch the trailer. You'll know exactly what we're talking about. So first scene is whatever. It's him falling out of this plane. The next scene is him as a child. Yes. And then the following scene is him as an adult working at the bar or whatever, which is cool. Mm-hmm. Why can't he just start at the bar? Am I missing something there too? Because I think a lot of these stories, like I feel like National Treasure, doesn't that start with him as like a kid and like talking to his dad, or is that something that's uncovered during the time? I guess I should have done more research for this question.
I think there's a flashback to where John Voight talks about I think the second one where he was the first one or the second one where he steals the Declaration of Independence.
The first one is the Declaration of Independence. Doesn't it open with him like on a ship, like finding the pipe?
It opens with, if I recall correctly, it opens with like the history of that moment where they perceived his uncle to betray the founders or something.
Oh, with him as a kid presenting it to his class or something?
No. I think it like starts way back, like in 1700s. And then I think there may be a flashback moment with John Voight as his father, but the flashback is like the context of the original storyline that jumps to the Jesus Christ. He's doing like a lecture and he gets proven wrong in front of a bunch of people that his father, by Ed Harris's character. No, that's the second one. Fuck.
Okay, Spencer doesn't remember National Treasure. I think we've established that. I'm
mixing my goddamn National Treasures up right now.
Kevin, is there another way to establish emotional stakes without showing your protagonist as a child?
Yeah. You have the present day characters say that my brother said once that anything lost can be found, and we're there. And it's like, oh, what about your brother? He's not lost. He's gone. Boom. We've saved ourselves 5 minutes.
It's fantastic.
3 locations,
probably
4 extras that we're never going to see again. Oh, man. It's insane.
Okay. Any more?
I got a big beef. Sorry to cut you off, Tim. I just have such a big beef. The kid that plays young Tom Holland is, as Spencer mentioned, he's like 2 years younger. I think he's supposed to be playing Tom Holland 10 years ago. He is like 2 years younger. 15? Are you fucking kidding me?
10, and then they're like 15 years later. So you're supposed to assume that he's like, I don't know, 25 or some shit.
The kid is 2 years younger than Tom Holland with a deeper voice.
Is he really?
Is that true? He's really
no, I didn't look it up. I'm just, it seems like it's true.
He grew once good enough these days. And now he's tending bar.
He grew. Oh, man. Well, I mean, I have a lot of gripes with this film other than what we've all been talking about. But I mean, the level of believability just it fluctuates so dramatically throughout this entire film. Mark Wahlberg's unwillingness to like really get beat up. Like he has that scene with his rival where, you know, like with the woman, his rival, where she like almost kills him or like tries to beat him up in that Papa John's. That clearly another like, I'm in a Papa John's, like boom, there's $5 million. Like it's a movie produced, you know, it's a corporate film. So I'm in a Papa John's, and
I liked the Papa John's moment. I thought that was funny. There are moments in this that are kind of funny where he's just like, shit, I'm in a Papa John. Like they're in this underground chamber and he's following them up above and he's in a Papa John's and then just has a fight in a Papa John's. That's great.
You know how that brings me out of it though. Like, you want me to live in this fantastical world of treasure hunters and thieves. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to fight in a you're going to say Papa John's? I mean, you don't have to say it. Like, give me a sign. Just put a sign like that I could catch somewhere like on the replay, or like some nerd on Instagram is going to be like, post it later and be like, oh, catch that Papa John's reference. There's like, I don't need the spoon feeding, like give it to me so I can figure it out for myself. This is the problem. They think the major studios, and Sony has this problem in general, think that audiences are stupid. And the fact is, while there are a lot of not great smart people out there, the general viewing audience can figure shit out for themselves. And if they can't, it's always fun to rediscover things down the line. Like I have a great time watching films I watched as a youth because I always rediscover new things when I rewatch them, especially if they're any good.
And you're going to keep rediscovering new things every time you rewatch Uncharted? Is that what you're saying? On the many rewatches of Uncharted, you're going to get the subtle placing of it's a punchline in this thing. It's a joke. It's in a Papa John's right now. Papa John's is funnier than, it's like the improv thing of like Heinz 57 or whatever is Pass the Heinz is funnier than Pass the Ketchup. For whatever reason it is. That's a terrible improv example of, what comedy should not be, but the specifics are more funny. Let's end on a positive note. Here. We've only got a few minutes left. Let's all go around and say what our favorite thing about this movie was.
Okay.
I'm going to start. My favorite was the Papa John's.
Oh God.
Mine was also the Papa John's. Spencer?
my favorite moment of the movie is when Tom Holland is dangling at the edge of the pirate ship that is attached to a helicopter being piloted by Mark Wahlberg. And there is a separate pirate ship also attached to a helicopter being piloted by a man with a very thick Scottish accent who had previously been set up in this movie as sort of like a bit. And instead of instead of any sort of payoff whatsoever for this character, he decides to decides that he's going to ram into Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg's ship helicopter combo with his own. And while he's doing that, he's holding a gun upright in the cockpit while he's headed straight towards Tom Holland.
That's a good part.
In a menacing manner, as if that is going to make any difference in this moment whatsoever. And that's just classic bad guy behavior in a goofy action movie, and that's my favorite part of the film.
He's gesturing with a handgun that is impossible for him to use.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good.
Yeah, and I think Kevin, I think you brought this up when we discussed it after watching it. Like there was no like payoff line where like Tom Holland could have said something like, "I understood that," like, something to the effect of ending the joke with a good punchline.
We got nothing.
There was a writing thing in that moment too, where we first meet the Scotsman, and the recurring joke is that no one can understand what the Scotsman says. And so the Scotsman comes up, says a bunch of stuff. Tom Holland, I don't remember what Tom Holland said in response for that, but it wasn't the right thing to say. I was like, as soon as he said it, I was like, that's wrong. I could have said that funnier easily. That's a writing thing. Like this is a joke. It's not being done right. He was told to do the wrong thing. So that's a con. The funniest part to me was when he tricks the girl into taking the wrong codes, and we're all like, oh no, she got the wrong codes. And then he stands up and he's like, huh, too bad she didn't take the right coordinates. And I started clapping in the theater. It was so bad and dumb that I couldn't help but clap. It made me smile. I was like, I genuinely like how dumb this is. I saw it coming from a mile away. I loved it. Kevin, what about you, bud?
We haven't covered so much. We haven't covered Antonio Banderas, his father, the girl that he hires, the other girl that he hires.
We never will. We got to the most important stuff first.
We're not going to.
The one thing we haven't mentioned that I really want to, that we discovered while we were eating lunch afterwards, was the fact that Spencer brought up how many people in this movie double cross each other. It's constant. People are double crossing each other left and right. And then we realized that the MacGuffin of the entire movie was a pair of literal crosses. I still don't know. I've been thinking about this every day since. I still don't know if that was intentional or not.
I guarantee you it was not intentional.
They are also combined into what could be referred to as a double cross.
And
right?
by the way, when they combine those crosses and then he inserts that into the key, one of the crosses does not get used in the insertion of the key. It's just like one end of those crosses. So it really didn't take both crosses at all.
There's an awful thing with the map where it's like they're both standing up and he spins them like random. Like it makes no sense how he uses them on the map. Like, why can't you just put them on the map and line them up with markers and they point? But there's got to be some weird compass doohickey thing. And it's like, it's crazy. It's so crazy. We got to wrap this bad boy up. Spencer, thanks so much for coming back to talk to us about your favorite movie. I know we couldn't keep you away from it. So.
Well, we didn't discuss Fool's Gold. What are you talking about?
Thank you. I forgot. We'll do Fool's Gold in a few years for our Patreon.
Matthew
only.
McConaughey, Kate Hudson, Kevin Hart, Ray Winestone. I mean, the list goes on.
Well, we're gonna be doing a Kevin Hart series. We aren't. Kevin, do you have any final thoughts for this?
Final thought is, I bet the video game's good, and I'm gonna go play that.
I'm sure
That's
it's much
good.
better.
Spencer, final thought?
Final thought is wait for this movie to come out on FX when it's playing at 3:00 in the afternoon in like a year.
Yep. Then buy a puzzle, settle in, and enjoy yourself. That's it for us. Thank you for listening to Nerdy 430. Stay nerdy, friends. Bye.